Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. I'll start by mentioning the people of Palestine, the people of Gaza. They are the bravest and the most courageous people that I have ever seen. They are being killed on a daily basis without having done any mistake and are still standing firm in their faith. And in spite of having so many powerful Muslim rulers, not even one is capable or is able to give them a shelter, a safe place that they need the most now. Let's pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help them and send them help from the unseen and make them victorious in their cause. Now, in this life, when we can take shelter and shade ourselves, but there will be a time, the day of judgment that we all know, there will be no shade except for the shade of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that will also be a time when we know that the sun will be right above our heads. So, do we know the distance between the earth and the sun? The distance between the earth's average distance to the sun is about 93 million miles, which is 150 million kilometers. Can we imagine this? The sun's heat that we are feeling right now is unbearable, in spite of it being at a great distance from us. What will happen when the sun will be right above our heads? This is reported in a hadith by Muslim that Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Tudna shamsu yawm al-qiyamati min al-khalqi hatta takuna minhum kamiqdari mil," which means on the day of resurrection, the sun will be brought close to the creation, so much that it will be a mile away from them. One of the narrators of this hadith, Sulaim ibn Amir, said that, "By Allah, I do not know if he meant by meal the distance of the land or the meal that is used to apply coal to the eye." Both of the meaning that we can take, that we derive from the word meal, the distance is very small. Just imagine this. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that He will take certain types of people under His shelter, under His shade when the sun is brought near. There is a hadith of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam recorded by Bukhari, Muslim, and Tirmidhi that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, on the day when there will be no shade except for His shade, seven types of people He will take under His shade. Now, who are those seven? The first one is a just ruler. This is not applicable only if you hold a position, if you hold a power, if you have power. No, even on a daily basis where you need to make a decision, wherever you are supposed to pass a judgment, you should be just enough and not take the side of the one you like or the one you think is correct. Rather be just and give a judgment that is correct according to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the second is the one, a youth who grew up in the worship of Allah. Now, why is it mentioned youth? Because as human beings, we have a mentality that once after 40s, after 50s, we turn to Islam. We get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because we know after this there is nothing but death. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He needs the of worship of when you are young, because that is a time when you can get deviated very easily, where you have power and where you also have a good health, free time, and all of this can easily get you deviated. So that is where the test comes. A youth who grew up in the worship of Allah, that is when you actually showed Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that you don't need anything but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The third is a man whose heart is attached to the mosque. Now, how is this possible? Unless and until a person finds peace and tranquility in salah, coolness of the eyes, coolness of his eyes are his salah, are his prayers, that is only the time when his heart will be attached to the mosque. The fourth type of people are those who love each other for Allah's sake, meeting for His sake and parting for His sake. What does this mean? There are certain people with whom we are not on good terms with, and yet only for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's sake, we meet them, we greet them, and also we speak to them in a good manner. we help them when they are in need without any personal benefits from them. That is that we are only doing it for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala solely. Then comes the fifth type of category, is a person, is a man who is called by a woman of beauty and position for adultery, but he says, no, I fear Allah, I fear Allah. So now this was a time when he could easily commit a sin, but he rejected, he refused only for the sake of Allah. And the sixth one is a man who gives in charity and hides so much that his left hand does not know what his right hand gives. Amongst us are people who keep on mentioning their charity, their good deeds. If you are mentioning it with the intention of encouraging the person, it's good. But at times what happens is we are mentioning our charity, we are mentioning our good deeds only to belittle the person in front of us. So now that is not good. Over here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions these type of people who hide it, who conceal their charity to the extent that their own hand, left hand, right hand is giving, so the left hand does not know. And the seventh point mentions a very important one. It is a man who remembered Allah in private so much that his eyes shed tears. Now, why is this included and why is this so important? Because when we are with people, we tend to get emotional with others. But when we are in private, when we are alone, we tend to be we tend to be ourselves. If we easily commit sins when we are in private, but we don't commit them when we are in public. Whenever a person is alone, it is very hard for him or her to control the nafs, to abstain from doing the bad deeds, and to strive to do the deeds that please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So over here it's mentioned that he does not only remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in private, but also sheds tears. He prays whether he asks for forgiveness or whether he asks for his need, but he sheds tears in private, and that is solely for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, these were the seven types of people, and we should also try to become one of them, because the day of judgment, we all know our own mothers will abandon us, because that is a day where everyone will be worried about themselves. So, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes you under His shelter, He gives you His shade, that is a very great honor in itself. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to shade us with His shade on the day when there will be no shade except for His. And remember the people of Palestine as well as the Muslim Ummah in whole in your prayers. Jazakallahu khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.